being somewhere that's toxic and being somewhere that we just think, do you know what? This just isn't doing it for me. Somebody told me off. Or like, I just don't like this anymore, so I give up.
Something happened at work and it forced me to leave, which at the time I thought was the worst thing that could happen. But I probably, looking back, it needed to happen. I wouldn't have left.
There's something inside all of us that wants more. I believe that God puts that inside of everyone to desire more, to want more. But that can get clouded with these images in the world that say more money.
For the majority of the time, I enjoy it. For 99% of the time, I enjoy it. But there's a firm 1% that makes a world of difference where I'm like, there's no words for that.
A lot of my heart, passion and resource spent for something that sometimes I think, you ask that question, is it even worth it?
Yeah.
And I don't even mean financially, I just mean for my time and the best years of my life in hell.
Welcome to the Magnify Conversations. My name's Ruth, and I'm the founder and CEO of Magnify.
And my name's Rachel, and I'm one of the hosts of this podcast.
Magnify is a global community and content platform focused on equipping women like you to grow in and impact your sphere of influence. We truly want to see you thrive in all areas of life and want to display what faith can look like at the centre of that too.
We started the conversations because we wanted to have real discussions about things that matter. Money, relationships, and work, all through the lens of faith and our relationship with God.
Ultimately, we know as multifaceted women, things are rarely one size fits all. So we speak with many different women who are from our community and hear their stories. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Magnify Conversations.
In today's episode, we sat down with Donita Boateng to delve into leaving a job when it no longer serves you.
Donita is a semi-permanent makeup artist and aesthetician and the business owner of D-Brow Life based in East London.
Donita didn't hold back in this conversation as we discussed the tension between knowing when to leave and knowing when to stay in a job.
So let's get into this conversation.
Okay, so we are so excited to have Donita with us today on the Conversations. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And Rachel, I'm so excited for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Because honestly, work is a big part of our lives. And I think people forget that one thing about God is he cares about who you marry, who you partner yourself with, and what job you do, because it's where you spend most of your time. Your work can become your life. So we're going to talk about, when leaving a job when it no longer serves you, but also hear about your story as well, Donita, because I know you have a story about that. But before we go there, we just have a icebreaker that we want to do with you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I want to know what beauty trends you guys are loving at the moment.
What beauty trend am I not loving? See, this is going to sound biased, but I love a fluffy brow. So I'm loving a fluffy brow right now, but obviously that's what I do.
Yeah.
But I love a chunky brow.
Okay.
And I love a fluffy brow, so brow lamination.
Yeah, what about you, Rich?
That I'm loving or not loving?
Not loving. There's so many that you don't like.
There's so many. I don't know if it's a beauty trend as such. I love that there is way more of an emphasis now on skincare. I love makeup. I absolutely love makeup, but I feel like it looks its best on an amazing skincare routine. Yeah. So I know also it's excessive and the market's saturated, but I love the emphasis on skincare.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. So Denise, I know that you are in beauty at the moment, but you have a story about how you actually transitioned to being an entrepreneur and working for yourself. So tell us about the history of, work for you. What were you doing before you became...
So before I started doing what I was doing, what I'm doing now, I initially, I worked in a bank. I was there for about 8 years, retail banking. Then I got into sales. I was working for Kellogg's. And that took me right through. So I started working in a bank when I was at uni, first year.
While studying?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And then I want to say maybe around like 27, I started working for Kellogg's.
Yeah.
That took me through to about 29. And then I was just like, okay, nothing's clicking. Because I would have never got sacked from any of my roles. Like it was, I did enough to stay, put it that way. And it was enough money for me at the time, but I wasn't excited. I never went to work like, oh my God, I love this job. Like I never had that feeling.
Yeah.
I liked my colleagues. I always had really good colleagues, great management. but I wasn't excited to go in. I'd get there just on time and leave if I could, like, a little bit before. And I was excited about the weekend, excited to travel. Like, do you know what I mean? You know when you're not into work? So I turned 29 and I'm like, wow, you know, 30 is like a big deal. You're like, God, like, by now I thought I'd have everything in place. I had no man, no babies. And those things you can't control, but you can control what you do. So I just felt like, and along that journey, so the years that I'd been, you know, in the companies I'd been in, I'd been trying to figure out, if you don't want to do this, what is it that you want to do? And I couldn't put my finger on it. So anyone that knew me, I'd be like, what am I good at? Like, you know, when you're trying to figure it out, because my sisters knew, so straight out of uni, they knew what they were getting into. They were on the path there, but my jobs were not leading me anywhere. My younger sister said to me, get into eyebrows. And I was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Is that some, like, did you just have nice eyebrows?
No, like, anyone that knows me knows I love makeup. So I'm into all of that, but I never really wanted to be a makeup artist. I just like makeup. But she could probably tell this was something I'd be good at. But I just thought of, like, you know when you go to the brow shop and you're just getting them waxed and threaded? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I thought, this can't, you know, that this isn't me. Yeah, a whole
business.
Yeah. So I looked into the technique she was talking about. I was like, okay, and did nothing about it.
Right.
Then someone introduced me to someone that was doing it, and they were doing it well and making a lot of money. So now I'm looking at it like, oh, this is making sense.
Yeah.
Something happened at work and it forced me to leave, which at the time I thought was the worst thing that could happen. But I probably, looking back, it needed to happen. I wouldn't have left. And when that happened, I was like, actually, I'm going to give this thing a go. So I kind of fell into it. It wasn't a conscious decision that at X point, this is what I'm going to do. No, I just literally fell into it.
I'm so interested in even the banking and making, because that is a very, like, respectable job. I'm sure some people thought you're so focused. And what skill set did you have even while studying that thought, I'm going to go into banking? Was it other people deciding for you? Or
I also fell into that. I just remember my cousin being like, you should work in a bank, and she did. So initially when I started, I worked in a call centre doing telephone banking. So that's why I could do it whilst being at uni, because I could finish uni and still do the late shift because the hours and stuff. But I again fell into that and just stayed because I was good enough to stay and it paid, but I wasn't there deliberately and with passion.
What I'm hearing though is a work ethic, like constantly. Was that something instilled in you from?
Yeah, I've watched my parents work. Like I don't even agree with their work ethic. They overwork.
Wow.
My parents work hard. So I was that kid that if I was like, oh, I don't feel well, I'm not going to school, they'd be like, you know what, you'll go to school, and if you're so sick they send you home, then you're sick. Because, no, honestly.
Let the school decide.
Let the school decide. Like, you are not sick. I would have to literally be at death's door for them to say, okay, fine, you can stay home. They were not interested. Like, you were going to go to school. Yeah. So I've been brought up like that. Yeah.
And what traits did that create? I'm guessing a lot of discipline.
Yeah. I don't fear working. I like to be productive. Yeah. I've always had a job. Like, I've not worked. And when I haven't worked, it was because I'm starting my business. Yeah.
So you were saying when you were at the bank, or maybe more so when you were in your role before you made the shift to starting your business, you were kind of like coming in and going home. Like, there was no extra. There was no extra mile.
There was no extra anything. No.
And there's like such a bit of a trend now, I think, of quiet quitting as well. You know, it's talked about a lot online as well. It's kind of like, you've not actually quit your job, but you're there, and it's kind of like, I'm doing, the bare minimum sounds harsh, but I'm doing the bare minimum. I'm showing up, I'm doing what I'm being asked to do, but I'm not going to be staying late. I'm not going to be pushing things. I'm just literally staying in my lane. This is a job that pays the bills, and until something else, I'm going to
you check out, kind of?
It's almost like you're checking out while you're still in the role.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah. But I'm also thinking about that balance of, you know, not all things can be all things to everyone. So I'm not going to extract all the joy of life from my work. I think some people just go to work, get paid, and then that's the avenue maybe God uses for them to do all the other things, right? So sometimes we ask too much from work. Yes. I know we're there a lot. But, no, honestly, like, tell me what you think. But I think sometimes people want everything from work. Like, my colleagues, okay, not all your best friends are going to be at work on my this, but sometimes it's part of your bigger picture. But I don't know, what do you think about that? Yeah.
In all honesty,
Yeah.
I feel like you should enjoy what you do.
Okay.
Even if you didn't enjoy it, but you saw the purpose in it, you would feel like, do you know what, this is the reason why I'm doing it. And of course, paying the bills
Yes.
is a good enough reason to work, is why we're working essentially. But I do feel like you spend too many hours at work for it to not be enjoyable.
Right.
You need to be able to get through that. It's bad for your mental health. If you wake up every day and you do something that you know pays the bill, but depletes you in a certain way, in effect, you go home and you're not greeting your partner the same way, you're not greeting your family members the same way, because your spirit's not even the same, especially if it's taken away from you. Do you know what I mean? So I think if you're coasting through, that's one thing. But if you're doing a job that you know, this is sucking the joy out of me, then I don't agree with that.
Is it something that even, I would love to know what you would say to your younger self now.
Yeah.
Is that something you realised as you were come to the end of that season? Or were you thinking that throughout that, no, I can't give my life to this?
I wasn't passionate, but I wasn't hating my job.
Okay. Right.
For me, there's a massive difference. I loved my colleagues. For that stage of my life, I was making good enough money, more than I think some of my friends were making. I think as I was maturing and getting to a certain age, and like I said, I was turning 30, I could see that this money, if I'm not passionate enough to grow in this job, this means this is the role, right?
That's the ceiling,
so this amount is not going to be enough for as I mature and I grow. So the money's no longer going to be enough. I'm not excited by the role as it is. So then I could see myself starting to, not like it.
Yeah.
So for me, I then became, and I like to feel like I'm making a difference, and I wasn't making enough of a difference. It just didn't do enough for me.
Where does that come from, you wanting to make a difference? Where does that desire come from?
When I say difference, I don't mean like change the world.
Yeah. You're not building a well, but...
I don't know where that comes from, but I just feel like I have so much to give in my own way.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't showing up. I felt caged in at work.
Right.
There was so much of me that I couldn't be in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it wasn't extracting the best from you.
Yeah.
I feel like we've maybe touched on this before, but like the thought of feeling that we need to add value, even if it's not, you knew you weren't going to do that forever. You were coasting through, but you at least need to feel like I'm spending all this time here.
Yeah.
Okay, I love my colleagues, but you need to feel that you're adding value. I think a bit of an interesting thing to me, kind of in current culture and society, is the thought of things not serving us, and that kind of attitude there's such a fine line between being somewhere that is toxic, dare I use the word, because I feel like it's so overused and that's kind of a problem. Being somewhere that's toxic and being somewhere that we just think, do you know what? This just isn't doing it for me. Somebody told me off, or like, I just don't like this anymore, so I give up. And I know that's not that's actually not your situation, Donita, but what do you both think about that? Because I don't know if that's amongst millennials, Gen Z, or just it maybe is just non-age specific.
Yeah, the reason why I really liked you said I want to make a difference is because I think there's something inside all of us that wants more. I believe that God puts that inside of everyone to desire more, to want more. But that can get clouded with these images in the world that say more money, more, like you need a bigger house, so you need to have a bigger salary, or you haven't hit that milestone yet. But that real desire for more is fulfillment. And I really believe we get fulfillment from serving other people, from helping people. Like people are in the heart of most people's purposes, right? So I think that desire for more is placed in us, but then we have to connect back with God and say, okay, what would you have me doing at that time? Where would you have me? So even that, and it happens in a very unspiritual way. It can happen so naturally. Like you saying someone introduced me to someone, I don't take those things lightly at all now. I used to think, oh, my dad's friend was just, no, it's not just, do you know what I mean? You are part of a huge, intricate plan, and that introduction, was more than. Do you see what I mean? I like how natural people say it, but that really, I mean, you can tell us about more of it, but seeing someone else do something and your brain starts to go, I can do this, I can do more with this, and that connection happens. So yeah, I think we have to ask these hard questions serving me or serving God? Like, who is it really serving? What skills can I learn in this part of my life that will propel me in this next season of my life? And I'm already thinking the business skills that you learned probably at the bank.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I always say, and I think I had a conversation with someone earlier and I said, similar to uni, I didn't use my degree, but I needed to be still enough and focused on something to stop me from doing other things that I would have probably got myself into. And if I'd just not gone to like uni and I didn't have assignments and didn't have all those things to do, I probably would have just been of the world, like too of the world. But for me, at my workplace, the skills that I'd like to feel like I'm quite a professional. Just the way I am in terms of service and what that means. I've worked for quite renowned companies that believe in service. They lead with that. And I think it comes so naturally to me. So as much as I wasn't passionate about where I was at the time, I learned a lot of skills that have become second nature to me. So when people walk into my business, I greet them with skills that I learned from those businesses, and it's second nature to me. So I didn't feel like it was serving me, but I was learning a lot in that space. And you know what? I'm a chatterbox. So I know that I had people would come and open accounts and we'd be in that room for a good hour and a bit. And sometimes they just need an outlet, you know? So I feel like I might not have opened the most accounts and did X, but I know people were probably coming back maybe because of my service. And with that, do you know what I mean? So I think it's transactional and it's both ways. You're probably taking, and sometimes you don't see it in the moment. It's not until later that you're like, actually, this is where I was of use in that person's life or in this business, and this is where I benefited. But I do feel like there's usually some type of gain and it's serving me in there. And because I kind of think the problem with the mentality of, okay, everything, she's just not serving me. It's time to go. It's time to walk away. If that's a relationship or a job or a church or a friendship, it's like, you didn't serve me, I'm walking away. I don't feel like we have a very sacrificial generation, and I don't think people understand that. I don't think, and I hate that term microwave generation because it's that as well is being thrown around. But if you just think about things properly, there needs to be a bit of skin in the game. You need to have a bit of, nothing just happens overnight. It just doesn't, do you know what I mean? So it's having the tenacity or that patience to kind of see things through. And I just think we don't like to see things through because things usually do get better, especially if you're where you know you're supposed to be. Or so if I was supposed to be in a bank, I wouldn't have been at the top straight away. I would have had to work my way up. That still requires me to have been patient. I just knew I didn't need to be there. So if I think about my business, for instance, where I was when I started, I'd be praying for one client, but it got uncomfortable after a while because it doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes you're not seeing clients that are paying, you're seeing free clients. And, you know, as much as I love what I do, it comes with a lot of sacrifice. But you have to have
that patience.
And if you're thinking every time that happens, oh, this just isn't serving me anymore, I'm going to try something else. I kind of think, how many times has my work not served me? I've completely lost count. And I'm not trying, I'm not perfect. And I've had times where I've thought, do you know what, this is a lot of work, a lot of my heart, passion and resource spent for something that sometimes I think, you ask that question, is it even worth it? And I don't even mean financially, I just mean for my time and the best years of my life and health, is it worth it? And I suppose what helps me and what I come back to is, okay, well, has God got me here now, is the question. And I know that's not always a straightforward answer, but do I believe, was this the last thing God said to me about where I need to be? If it is, guess what? It might not be serving me right now. And I've got to work through that and deal with emotions. I'm not saying, just move on and get over it, but that's probably a good indicator that I need to be where I am right now. Again, I'm not talking about really toxic environments and not dealing with things that are difficult, but this like mentality of, right, that doesn't serve me. Well, where does like faithfulness come into that as well? And I'm not talking about hanging on to something unnecessarily, not taking risks, not being willing to step out and calling it, I'm just staying where I am and staying in my lane. There are times we've got to step out. But I think if our mentality is always, right, that's not really serving me right now. Okay, bye, I'm going to move on. We'd never actually we're not in anything long enough to grow and see anything good anyway.
No, I completely relate to that. I know it's hard to hear. What you're saying is hard. Nobody wants to hear that. Wait, take your time, grow. Nobody wants to hear those words. Everyone wants to hear now. I mean, we have Amazon today. We didn't even have Amazon next week. Nobody wants to know that. There's times I'm going to buy something and because it's going to take too long, I don't want to purchase it anymore. So that's even the environment we're growing up in. But I think if you live a while, you start to see the beauty in process, right? And that sounds so cliche, but I remember someone saying to me, God's reward for faithfulness God's reward for promotion is faithfulness. Like God promotes through faithfulness. He doesn't promote through sometimes how smart you are, how beautiful you are now. It's that faithfulness in what you're doing. And you can be serving quietly. Nobody knows what you're doing in that bank or in that church, but he sees you. He knows that you've been faithful with what you've been doing. And when that time comes, he will promote you. And I love that when God promotes you, no one can take that promotion from you. But when you promote yourself and you're like, this isn't working for me, I'm gonna be a CEO now because I've had enough of my CEO. Who's gonna hold that door open? You're gonna have to keep that door open because you force that door. But I wonder also, when it's time to move forward for some people, what it takes, the courage it takes. You had never done this business before. You didn't go to beauty school beforehand. What was going through your mind? Like how much courage did it take to say, okay, I'm gonna move into this?
I think for someone like myself, it would have taken me, or it did take me a lot of courage, but I also feel like God being God, the way the situation happened, it kind of forced me.
So you think you would have stayed where you were?
Yeah,
really?
So I had gotten to a stage where I knew I was no longer happy. So I wanted more. But especially because I started working young, and so I was used to the certainty of earning, and I'd always worked. And like I said, I was comfortable and I'd become accustomed to the security that a job gives you, right? So as much as I didn't like it, I wouldn't have liked not getting anything more. So
it's like, which is the lesser of two evils.
So and because I didn't know what I wanted to do, it's not like I was applying for things and knowing that, oh my God, I'm applying for these other roles and I'm so passionate and I can't wait. And I would start at a junior position and it would still satisfy me because I knew I was on my way up. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wasn't happy, Because of the situation that happened with work, I felt more comfortable leaving. I was so uncomfortable with work that I had to leave. And luckily for me, I've been quite good with money. So the pressure of, well, what do I do for my next coin? I didn't have that. So now I'm really uncomfortable with work, which felt like, what's going on? But I had peace in that space, peace that I wouldn't usually have because I'm an overthinker. I like to know that I'm okay tomorrow. And I was okay with it. I didn't know what I was going to do. There was no, this is the business I'm going to start. I started thinking about the business my sister had suggested once I had left, but I was comfortable. But I know that situation happened to push me out because it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Sinead, one of your co-hosts.
We know so many of you already watch these conversations. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, hit the button now. It really helps this important content to reach even more women around the world and ensures we can keep bringing these conversations to you.
Let's get back into this episode.
What was the question you were asking yourself at the time? Like, were you praying like a specific prayer? Like, because you saying you didn't know what you wanted to do. Do you remember what you liked, what you enjoyed?
So I knew I remember like knowing what I wanted to get out of a job, but not being able to put a title to the role, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I didn't think of entrepreneurship. I didn't think of having a business. I didn't think about doing my own thing. I just knew for a period of time, I'd wanted to move to Ghana.
Yeah.
I'd wanted to move to Ghana to have like a beauty school where I trained people. So not that I did the makeup, but that I would teach people. But I was scared to go. And I don't feel like I had the support I needed to go out there, not because I don't have a supportive family, but because they were scared as well. So that just meant we were all scared and doing nothing. But there was no clear plan, no. There was no clear plan. But I do know that as soon as I So I travelled for a bit actually, and once I got to Ghana, I realised I travelled. I went to Ghana. I got out to Ghana, and my cousin has like a beauty shop, and they were like, because I was there helping her with work, but they were paying me to do their makeup. They were paying me to do all sorts, and I was like, I could really get used to this. All I have to do is show up with my makeup on, and they're like, well, how do I do it? And they want it, and I could see that kind of lifestyle. And okay, so you can really just. Maybe I should do the eyebrow thing. It became a thought. It kept coming up. Came back. My sister had opened a beauty studio, and she was like, "You should just do the brows and work with me. Like, make Dad pay for your course and da 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 da." And I was like, "He's never going to do it." But when I told him, he was like, "Yeah, you need to do something." So, so he paid for it, and then I felt like, well, I can't not do it because he's paid for it, and I'm doing nothing. So I have to. So I feel like the way things happened, it was perfectly aligned. You know, sometimes you think, I've made X happen, but then other times you know that this had very little to do with me. And I think in this instance, I can see how God has just made it a very comfortable situation, and I just slotted myself in, and it's not perfect, but it's a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And I get to, in fact, now when I'm at work, even on my hardest days, even when my back's hurting, I've been bent over doing eyebrows, it never feels like work. Like it never really feels like a job, because now I'm showing up, I get to be myself. I feel like I'm making a difference, the world change that I needed to make. Yes. I get to make it, but, you know, my own little way, and it works for me,
And that courage that you use to keep going from there's no clients to clients, what was the message that you were telling yourself that they will come, like the clients will come?
I believe in seasons. Yeah. I know what quiet time looks like. I will see something through. Like, I'm that girl that will go for a walk in the rain with a raincoat and wellies on. Like, I will do it just to say I saw it through. But I need to like what I'm doing or see the value of what I'm doing. And I liked that I was doing my own thing. Like, once clients started coming, not at the time, but I could predict that once clients start coming, I can actually show up when I want. I can actually travel when I want. I can actually determine how much I make because I can work as hard or as little as I want to. Those things were enough for me to strive for. And I don't know, I just feel like as long as you've done your best, God will meet you more than halfway. Like, I'm a firm believer in that. Yeah. But you've got to do your bit. Yeah.
You know, in your work now and in your business, when you have times where you feel like, right now, this doesn't feel like it's doing me any favors. How do you practically handle that? Because obviously it's your business, so it's not kind of like looking to someone and being like, hey, sort this out, like looking in the mirror and speaking to yourself. I guess, first of all, like, what are some of those things that you feel like, yeah, this isn't showing up for me right now? But then how do you actually manage that and break through that thing of that mindset of like, oh, this isn't great for me right now, just to focus and keep going?
For the majority of the time, I enjoy it. For 99% of the time, I enjoy it. But there's a firm 1% that makes a world of difference where I'm like, there's no words for that. Do you know what I mean? But I do enjoy it. And honestly, like sometimes when things happen, I'm like, working for yourself is so hard because you can't predict what next month looks like. You actually can't. And sometimes it's so quiet, you're like, did I lose my touch? Is there a rumour going on around me about me? It can get like that, you know, but you have to understand that it's more than you. First of all, you're offering a service that is, for what I do, it's not healthcare, it's not pharmaceuticals, there's no real need there. So if money's tight, people can't afford your service. But in those times now, before I used to get really anxious about it, I'm not as anxious as I used to be. Because I know that tomorrow is going to look better. I know it sounds so cliche, but I just trust as long as I've done my best. I'm like, when things are really quiet, I'm like, okay, where am I going wrong? What did I do last week or last month that I haven't done this month? Or what can I sharpen up on? Or, okay, usually you're busy because you've got bums in seats, but if there's no bums in seats, how do we make sure that our social media looks really good? Who do we collaborate with? You find other things that are actually important for your work, that sometimes when you've got a service-based business, you just want as many people coming through the door that you don't look at the bigger picture. So what I've learned to do actually is, okay, we don't have as many people walking through, but what do we do outside the business that contributes? Like, you know, so that not so much outside the business because it's all the business, but outside of the service and the actual hands-on faces, what do we do outside of that that's going to still bring people in, you know? So it's just finding other ways to be productive and not focusing on what's not working and what your situation, because staring at the problem never changed it. So you might as well do your bit. So you pray on it and you ask for the tenacity or you ask for the resilience. I think for myself,
that's a good prayer.
I don't want to focus on what's not working. I don't like feeling defeated. So what do we do to fix the problem?
You mentioned I'm the person that sees things through. And I can relate to that so much because my mum was always like, finish well, finish well, finish well. I know it's a culture issue, like Jesus went all the way to the cross, finish well, finish well, finish well. But when sometimes you pushed all the way, and especially when you're the sort of the face, the head of this organization and company, do you ever think, okay, I also need to guard myself and protect myself and not let the business take over my own life and, you know, my desires? So like, how do you separate as well when, we have to see this project through, or actually, no, it's enough, like I need to pull back? Like, how do you do that?
I'm quite logical, so it needs to make sense. I've never really considered it. I'm never really looking outward. So I am, but I'm not. For me, as long as I'm doing my best, it's not taken away from me. But I can't really separate my business from myself. Like I do usually associate it to me.
Is that good?
It's good and bad.
Okay.
But since I don't have kids, this can be the first one. I don't know. I don't know. I just see it as... I don't even know
being
how...
a good steward over what you have.
I just do what I can. I think I just do what I can. I don't even know how to answer that because...
I would like to know what values or do you live by, or what core principles do you maintain? Because technically you've proven to yourself, I can do something I've never done before. So you could, in a few years, do something completely different. So what are the same values? I see this a lot with successful business people. It's actually the same principles over and over again. What are yours that you...
I don't know that I have a list of, but what comes naturally, or what I think I do is I'm indecisive, right? And I'm starting wrong, I know. I'm indecisive, but once I decide, so some people, they want to do every business. They've had thousands of jobs. Since I've had an NI card, I've probably had 3 jobs. And I stayed long periods of time in each of those jobs while it made sense. I've never had a business. I probably wanted to do something long before I could figure out what it was. But now I've decided this is what I'm doing. So it's going to take a lot for me to not do it. And if I'm not doing it anymore, it's because I've done everything I can do, or I fell out of love with it. And I don't think you should do things you don't love. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, it's probably why I'm struggling to kind of answer some of your questions. It's not up for negotiation. I'm passionate enough to do it for free. I do it sometimes. Sometimes I'll be doing stuff for free. You know? So it just... You know, there's no, okay, well, I'm not doing it no more. It's not a joke, it's a real thing. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's funny because of the whole, we were talking about millennials and Gen Z thing, right? And then I'm very much, when I'm committed to something, I can't let go, like, of that pitch. Until God literally, like, pries my hand off that thing, I'm not letting go, like, all the way to the wheels fall off, really. Because I know that God will tell me when it's enough and when it's time to let go. And I think it is actually refreshing to hear someone say, I'm committed. We don't hear that enough.
But we don't have a very... If you think about it, even outside of work, a lot of us are not committed in many areas of our lives. We use the word, it's just thrown around. Like, we're not committed to much. Like, as a society, right, I can't see much consistency and commitment in most things. You name it. So it's whether that be your diet, your saving plan, your relationship, just your mental health, just your day-to-day activities. So sometimes I speak to people and I feel like I'm too... if you know me for about a week, you know what I'm doing next week, because I have
Yeah.
I've got a morning
Schedules.
list, a midday list, an evening list. And that doesn't mean you're doing more than the other person, but I can commit to what I say I'm going to do. Do you know what I mean? Not all the time, but where it matters. So that's not in every area of my life, but for my business, I'll go. I will. I might not make it to the gym, but I like a walk. I'll go for my walk, you know, because that I know where that benefits me. So it's I think what you said about, is it the millennials?
Yeah, millennial, Gen Z. Yeah.
The newer generation, I don't know the names. The newer generation, and this is not to come for them, I don't want to get cancelled, I really like young people. But I do feel like it's a great thing because everyone wants to do everything, but I don't know how you can love so many, like obviously...
It's true, you can't love everything.
Yeah, you know, because you can't apply yourself to everything, you know? So I think it's good to figure out that one thing and then do everything to bring it together. I don't know if you've heard of the book, The One Thing, but it talks about many of us having so many things that we want to do that we can't possibly do the thing. If you figure out that one thing, everything has to come into alignment with where you're going, you know? It's like when you decide what kind of guy you want. Well, you're not going to find him over there, so what are you going over there for? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you get it? Once you say, this is what I want, it's like when you go shopping. Once you know you want a black dress, you don't shop where you can see all the colour. You go to where
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I've not heard of that book, but I think the way I was thinking about it then as well, Donita, is that one thing is not usually a role or a certain box or but it might just be, what am I? Or what am I looking for? What's the one thing that I bring? You know, that's a bit savage. It's not one thing, but kind of, who am I and what do I bring to the table? You know, when you were saying you were in banking, you were in these other roles and you were like, I actually just love to talk to people. And the reason they came back to me is because we had a great conversation and they needed a space to offload. I guess that's part of your one thing. But then when you started a business, you're like, oh, it was kind of from an idea that you said, and then you had a bit of an experience in Ghana and it's like, oh, I could actually do this. So those things kind of align.
Exactly.
And you follow, rather than just following, it's
spreading yourself.
It's beauty. You were following kind of what was naturally coming out of you, and it just so happened to be there's an opportunity here and you took it.
I think people are so multifaceted and they see the fruit of people like what you've done, and younger people see, well, I want to be her and I want to be her, because they can see the best part of that, but they don't know the decision. They don't really like that. What that decision?
It's almost like the fruit on the tree, but like the roots of all of that
went
is
down
the years before it.
You know what? Don't want to get too Christy and too but
go for
I think sometimes if you think of it's you reap what you sow.
Yes.
Right? And when you sow something, if you think about what it takes, if you plant a seed, you don't just see a tree in the morning. You don't just see a plant, a beautiful flower. It just doesn't work like that. It's not realistic. And I think that's what a lot of us are missing, myself included. But you have to apply yourself. You have to be patient. You have to see all the seasons pass before you see anything. But I guarantee you, once you get to a certain point, it's like a bamboo. Like it literally, you see nothing and then you start to see acceleration by light speed, like it's crazy. But you have to lay a firm foundation. You have to see it through, and it's literally just that part.
A lot of the people I listen to often give analogies of the fact that you can be punching a wall. Like a lot of us punch walls and we punch over there, then we punch it, But if you kept punching in the same direction, you will make headway. And a lot of us, especially as believers, life should be so calm and sweet. And it's like, no, if you keep pushing and pushing, you will make some headway. There might be resistance, but I remember the devil doesn't fight you forever. He has to go away and torture somebody else. So you remain. The Bible actually says you should stand and he will flee. And I've always seen myself, I remember when I was trying to break through in my career, I was like, I've punched this wall so many times. Something has to break at this point. And I remember someone confirmed it to me. Like someone came to my church and said, when you punch through that door, all the other doors will open. And I was like, I cannot quit. And I listened to actually a lot of sermons about denying the temptation to quit, just denying it, because it's so easy to quit. It's so easy to give up, but you have to punch through that wall so that the other doors can open, So I really can relate to that.
And once you've been through enough of that, what that does is it kind of gives you something to look back on and say, well, if I've been through that, then I can go through that. Do you know what I mean? So I know that we've had COVID not too many years ago now, 2 years now?
Yeah.
And now if something happens with work, I'm like, you kidding me? Like,
there was a time where,
you know what I mean? Like, but at the time I thought, I've only had my business, 2 years? You know, how can this be happening? But in fact, it's now a reason why I'm like, well, I can actually get through this. This is nothing compared to that. So it's, once you've been through enough, it actually helps you build confidence in the fact that tomorrow will be okay, you know, so.
And entrepreneurship is really popular at the moment. Everybody wants to be their own boss, everyone wants to work for themselves. I don't even manage myself well, so I don't know. But, you know, for a lot of people that look to you to say, oh, how can I do this? What are some of the pieces of advice you give them when they're saying, I want to start out in business, or I want to do what you've done? You know, what do you say to people like that?
First of all, don't look to me.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, don't. I don't think there's like a formula. I don't think I've made it. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. And that's me being really honest. It's not to be humble. I don't. I'm figuring it out myself. And even when people come and they're like, oh my God, I'm like, really? Really? Oh, okay, thanks. Because you know what the reality is. And social media, if that's what you're going by, because that's what a lot of people are going by, or sometimes you walk in, you see a nice space and it's a busy day, so you're booked and busy. You know, it's all of that. And it is, there are amazing, great things, but I can't say I've made it, so I don't want anyone to think, because I also feel like there's a lot of people that think they haven't because it looks like others have. So in reality, no, it's not that, but it's good and it's worth it and I'm happy. But I would say is figure out what you really, really want and be clear and plan for more than just like the next. Because sometimes you want to do something so bad, you only plan for like the next few months or the next year, and you only care about, oh, if I do this, then I get a couple £100. It should never look like that. It needs to be a lot broader than that. And then do as much planning towards it as you can. Because what I'm finding now is, when I started my business, because I just wanted to be productive and be doing something, I only cared about, I'd do browse, I'd be like, oh my God, I actually did that. I was surprising myself with each customer. I was like, oh, okay, wow, they stayed. Like, I couldn't believe it was actually working. So, and then it was like, okay, I'm getting better at my craft. More people are coming. My following is growing. It became about that. Those aren't long-term things. In this stage now, I look at my business and I'm like, actually, who are your target audience? And so, and it's not bad because at least I've figured that out, right? But when you plan a business, know your target audience, know why you're doing it, know how much you kind of want to be making, so you know not that you've got the one client, but what does it take for me to get those people? Like, just have a better idea and make sure you do it for free. Make sure it's about more than money, because you're never really going to have enough money. You're going to keep chasing it. It will deplete you. You will end up resenting it. So just pick something you like, because you might never get the coin you deserve, but at least you were happy doing it. So you need to make it make sense. For me, I don't have colleagues. I have a team sometimes. That's, you know, you pay the team, so the team is there sometimes. And I need to go in and know that you can't do what I do if you're not a people person. Clients walk in, I'm like, hey, how are you? What's going on? Let's talk. I'm ready for it. Some people don't like people, and you have a service-based role. So you need to know. No, it's
I never
true.
Understood that.
You go in and you know, you might go get your nails done, and they're great at what they're doing, but they can't retain customers because they're cussing you out right before your eyes. They are, because they don't really like it. They don't understand service, and they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. They're just good at what they're doing. You're only going to get so far with that. So you just pick something you like, and it's like a little party every day, and it's worth it.
That's amazing.
So shall we do an audience dilemma?
We've got dilemmas from our community, so we'd love to know what you think. So I'm going to read this one. It says, I'm under no illusion that following what God wants you to do is going to be easy, but I didn't expect it to be this hard. I work in a role I really felt God led me to, but it's been challenging. Some of my friends are saying, if it doesn't serve you, just leave. How do you manage the tension between doing what God wants you to do and what serves you?
How do you manage the tension between what God wants you to do and what serves you? You need to get clear on what you think God wants you to do.
Yeah.
I find God in my workplace every day. Yeah. So I think for them, you need to ask God for discernment and then clarity as well, because the two should align. Yeah, and it would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that the outside voices, like the friends.
Yeah.
What do your friends know, really? Like, most of my friends don't even do the job that I do. So they're an outlet, but they're not my advisors because they're not the one that's giving me the power to gain wealth. God is. So I think friends cloud, sometimes even family, close, well-meaning people can cloud what God already told you to do.
But that's why clarity is important, because if you're sure in your spirit that this thing works for you and it's in alignment with what God says and how you feel, outside noise can't get to you.
Yeah. That's been so helpful, Donita. And last but not least, obviously we are a community, so we'd just love to know, where can we find you online? Like, tell us a little bit about the
you can
business
find
online.
me on Instagram at The Brow Life. So please, guys, go follow wherever the camera is. Have a look. But I'm based in East London on Liberated Road.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for this
I feel so
conversation.
peaceful.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's conversation. We hope you gleaned as much from it as we did.
If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all of our episodes at the Magnify Conversations.
And if you have a story to share and would like to be featured on the conversations, get in touch with Team Magnify through magnifycollective.com and head over to our contact form.
We'll see you next Monday for another installment from all of our team and crew. See you next week.